Hey, welcome back to the channel, guys. Today, we're going to talk about how to build a personality type of application. It's kind of like a questionnaire. And as you fill out the questionnaire, you get a result saying what type of personality you are. I'm sure you've seen plenty of these online on Facebook and whatnot. So today's goal is to actually teach you how to build an application using navigation controllers and table view controllers. Those are one of the most common components of an iOS application. So let's get right into what the app looks like. So navigation controller, table view controller, like that. And at the final screen, we have just a regular view controller. So this might look like a huge project, so let's break down the app into smaller steps that we can manage one by one. So here we are, step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. If we have enough time, we'll get into step 4, but let's start with step 1 first, and this is going to be creating a navigation controller with the orange bar at the very top, and then it's a table view controller at the bottom with a header and a couple of cells. So let's open up Xcode and begin coding. Always a fun part. So Command-Shift-N opens up the project creation template, and then we hit, what do we want to call this? Personality type app. Enter, enter. And here we go. Let's use the iPhone 6s similar just because it's a little bit smaller, and we're going to fit it in the screen. Here we go. Okay, having run the application, everything's working, and I'm just going to resize that. Hit Command 3 to shift it down just a little bit. Actually, let's use the bigger one. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to create our controller, which is the view controller. And I'm just going to subclass it as a UITableViewController right away. And we're going to do some stuff at line 16. So in order for me to not touch storyboards, because I think they actually make the project harder than necessary, I'm going to delete it, and then I'm going to remove the main, and I'm going to go ahead and create the window manually like this. UI screen, bounds window, make it visible. And then we need to set a root view controller on the main window. And this is going to be a navigation controller. So let's create it right above. UINavigationController. Use a root view controller initializer. Like that. And we need a controller. And thus, we'll make it right here. Call it controller. Equal something. So it's going to be this view controller. And before I instantiate it, I'm just going to rename it to be question controller, and then call it question controller right there. Let's use that controller, and then we'll use this navigation controller as our root controller. Run that, and you'll see that we have a navigation controller indicated by the top bar at the very top of the screen, and then we have a table view controller with the cells and horizontal bars separating those said cells. Now we're going to do something with the cells. Let's go back to our preview, and we have 3 things that we want to do. We want to modify the nav bar, create this header, and then create the cell. Let's first modify the nav bar's color by changing it like this, using the appearance proxy and using bar tint color, orange color. And then let's also change the text of the title to white. So let me show you what it is by default. By using navigation item, title equals question. Run that. You'll see that it is in fact black by default. So to change it, we will use appearance again. Use title text attributes, and as foreground, color attribute name. I'm just going to use white right here. Run that guy one more time. You're going to see that the navigation title turns white. So easy enough. The last remaining task is to change the status bar to white. And we do that by adding an extra property in our plist, type V for ViewController status bar. Use no for the Boolean value, go back to app delegate, and then we just change it by using the application status bar style equals light content. Hitting run again, the status bar is going to change white immediately after the launch. So that task is done. Now we want to create the header right here. Or actually, let's create the cells first, since that's usually how developers work anyways. And we do that by providing a method that returns a cell like that. And so we need to return a cell indicated by this class type right there. Now, in order to return a cell, we also have to register a cell first. Let me show you by doing that. Register cell, so cell class. And we need a cell class now that is going to be our view. So I'm just going to create it as our answer cell, UITableViewCell. And I'm going to override an initializer called init style with reuse identifier, which will just do that and reuse. Okay, and then we're going to call a method called setUpViews, which we create right here. And then fix this little compiler error because Swift doesn't like it when a class doesn't have that required initializer. Just a Swift thing. Don't worry about it so much. In setUpViews, we will create a name label just for the sample answer right there. And in order to create that in code, you just do that with the UI label. And you create the label inside this block like so. Text equals sample answer, return label. And then this just executes the block, returns the label like that. And then we add it into the cells subview hierarchy like this, name label. And then in order to show it onto the screen, we use NSLayout constraints with this constraint method. And we will just expand it entirely from the left to the right with the pipe like that. And then for our layout options, we don't specify any by just using that default nil. And important part is to specify a views dictionary. So V0 is our name label. Hopefully that is self-explanatory. Basically, left edge, right edge, V0 is our name label. Nothing too special. And we're also going to specify the vertical constraints, that is top to bottom, with the view spanning the entire height. All right, good stuff. Now, the last thing we need to do is specify translates auto resizing mask to false. And it is saying use our manual constraints instead of the auto or the old legacy layout system of iOS. So running, well, before we run it, we have to actually return our cell that is dequeued from the table view using a identifier. And let's just create a cell identifier like that, calling it cell ID. Doesn't really matter so much what you want to call it. And cell ID will return this class right here that we register. Cell ID. Let's run that. But let's see. What is this guy saying? DQ. Okay, we actually want to use this method here instead. So identifier is cell ID, and index path is index path provided to us from this method. Run that. We're going to get our orange nav bar, but the cells are not being returned. Why? Because we haven't provided it with the number of rows to return. So saying 5, it's going to give us 5 cells that show up like that. Now you see how sample answer is kind of stuck to the left side. you can push it over 16 pixels just like that. So constraints are really easy to modify in code as opposed to in the storyboard, in my opinion. And to change the font, we will do font equals UI font, system font of size 14. Running that, you'll see the edits like so. And let's finish by returning the header. So table view, very similar to returning the cell. We'll do view for header and section. And we need to return a view or some kind of header. So we will register a header just like how we register a cell, but use for a header footer view reuse identifier like that. And then we're going to create a header. It's called question header self, which is going to be this class here. So this needs to be a table view header footer view, and then let's call it init reuse identifier super init reuse identifier. Cool. And then fix the compile error that always comes up, never fails. And let's call setup views right there. Setup views is that we can actually copy and paste this entire guy in here, and it's going to produce that same label, but let's just change that to sample question. Here we can return that header footer view with a header ID. So what is header ID? Header ID is going to be a string that says header ID. Nothing too surprising. And we'll register it with that header ID like that. So running it one last time, we get our cells, but the header is not showing. So the reason is because we haven't specified a table size header. So I'm going to cheat here, and it says section header height. Section header height is 50, and that's going to bring the header 50 pixels right at the very top of the table view section. So there it is. I would like to change the label to be a bold font size instead, just to create a little bit of separation with the UI. Okay, cup of coffee. Cool. That is step one. Now, probably like a lot of steps, but as soon as you get used to table view controllers, you're going to notice that it's very helpful in generating a view, especially for an iPhone that is typically a list. Now, in order to remove the bottom lines that you're seeing, this is a little strange, but we will footer view. Let's see, what is it? Table footer view is UI view. That is how you get rid of those horizontal bars. Don't ask me why, I don't exactly know why, but that's how you do it. All right, now going on to step 2 of the preview, we want to generate this this results page upon clicking one of the answers, and the result will tell you exactly what like personality type you are. And to do that, we first have to provide a selection method. So when we select an item on the table view, we got to do something in response. So override that. And we need to provide it with a controller equals something, right? And let's see. So I'm just going to create it inline right here. Call it results controller, UI view controller. Okay, that, and then we can override view did load. So it's called super. It's always good to call the super method. And then we need to return it right here and push it onto the view controller, which is sort of like pushing a page on top of a page. They call it a stack. And to do that, we just put controller there and animation to be true. So upon clicking the item, we're going to see a black view controller. And I'm going to show you exactly why. It's because we haven't changed the default color to white. That. Now we want to create the label that says congratulations. And we do that by setting label. Let's just call it name label again, or results label. Like that. Label.text equals congratulations, you're a total Ross. Return label. That's cool. And we need to add it onto the views subview hierarchy. Results label. And then add constraints onto it. Constraints so that we can get it to show up. And that, let's bring this guy up just a little bit. Cool. And now, let's move that guy over. Here we are. We will add constraints very similarly. So let's lay out constraints, dot constraint. Let's just expand it fully again, horizontally. And this layout, format options, nil. 0 is our results label. And then let's do that with vertical constraints as well. And we need to specify translates to false again. And let's see what we have. Cool. Now we have that text and it's missing the center alignment. So we change it by calling text alignment, setting it equals center. And let me just change the font to bold. Is it font bold 14? Let's run it. And clicking that, here we go. So the question is, or the back button that says question is in blue. To change that, we will change the navigation controller's navigation bar tint color to white, like that. And question, so now it says question. To change it to the word back, you just have to change navigation item back bar button item. So that is a bar button item, and you want to use this title initializer. I'm just gonna call it back. Use it plain. We don't need a target or a selector. So hitting that. Sample answer. Now it says back. Pretty cool. Let me just change this so that it also says title of results. And that should match what we have here. Click results and congratulations text. Awesome. Now the last step here is to show our question that is part of the questionnaire of this app. And in order to do that, we will create a struct that is a class object which represents our question. So struct, let's call it question. And for the question itself, we'll call it question string. Answers that we will be able to select is an array of strings. And so the question controller, just imagine that we have a question that we instantiate like that. And question string is, let's say, what is your favorite type of food? And for the answers, we can type in sandwiches, pizza, and like seafood. And let's say unagi is my favorite type of food. And then if we run that, nothing changes like we would expect. So we want to change the sample question to say, what is your favorite type of food? To do that, we will go to the header, which is here. So I'm going to grab a hold of the header like that and or downcast it. I think that's called downcasting to question header and header name label dot text. And we're going to use question string, turn the header, run it. So name label is our name label down here. And now it says, what is your favorite type of food, like we would expect. And lastly, we want to change the answer to use the answer that is in our struct that we created. To do that, we let our cell equal that. And this is downcasted to an answer cell. Cell.nameLabel.text equals question dot answers. And in here, we want to access the index of the row, which is like that. And to answer or to access the optional, just put a question mark. So returning the cell, we get our array index out of range. That means that the fifth row is trying to access something in this array, but since there's only 4 items, we get out of bounds. So this needs to be count. And to safely unwrap the count variable, we let count equals that and add the if. So if the count is actually a value, we just return it. If it's null, we will just return 0, like so. And here we go. We have our question and then our answers right below it. And then clicking on it, we get our results screen yet again. So results, in order to have the result page show show text that is corresponding to our question that we answered, we will grab a hold of the question, which is a question like that, and then we're going to keep track of what the selected answer index is by using that. And here we need to fix it so that we provide let's just provide nil for now. And inside of table view or inside of did select row, we will say question for that results is question. And before we do all that, we need to specify the selected answer index, which is this row parameter right there. And it's going to tell you that question is a let constant. So for structs, you have to specify a var if you want to change the properties on it. Now that we have that set, we will respond to this question set on result controller by calling did set and question. Let's just print out what question dot selected answer index is, and then we'll do some trickiness to figure out what it should be. So it says optional 2 and see if it is 0, 1, 2. So optional 2. And how do we figure out what type of personality type you are? And I'm just going to do that by creating an array of strings. Call it Joey. Who else is there? Chandler? Okay. And we'll include the females as well. Such a great show. And Phoebe, if I can type that correctly. There we go. Now we will say results label dot text equals this very same string, but we will modify this Ross section with this result variable, which is going to be a string because names is like that. And we're going to access question.selectedAnswerIndex. And is it that? That, yes. And actually, let's do it a little safer by saying if let result equals names. Actually, no, that's okay. Yeah, that's fine for now. So inside of the sentence for the results, we do names result. No, just result. Like that. And so this needs to be bang, bang. Run it. We get Unagi gets to the fourth, or the fourth item in this array, which is Monica. Hitting sandwiches gets the 0th item, which is Ross right here. And that is pretty much it for this part of the tutorial. So to recap, we learned how to use navigation controllers and UITableView controllers to construct a very, very simple app like this. Now, the remaining part of this application is to actually create multiple TableView controllers. What I mean is the last step, we have multiple questions for this entire questionnaire app. And to do that, we have to do quite a bit of extra work, and I'm going to include that as a part 2 of this tutorial. So if you're interested, look out for that part 2, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to thumbs up, like, comment, and subscribe if you want to support the channel. All right, bye-bye.